Hello there, kia ora. In media studies, we have this theory called the agenda setting theory. It's a theory that states that mainstream media set the agenda for public discourse on a topic based on the level of coverage and the prominence of that coverage that they put out there. And over the last month, our mainstream media has actually shown exactly how this works with two news stories in particular. The first was Golriz Grarahmen's visit to Pack and Save last year, where she shopped the same way about 90% of their customers do, but this dominated headlines for a week. Every major news outlet in the country ran this story and variations of it and spin offs and opinion pieces around it, including over the last weekend when Stuff's Damien Grant got in on the kicking them while they're down action. Now, Golriz is no longer an MP. She's a private citizen. The information used in the stories was not given named sources. There was no charges involved. Ultimately, this went nowhere, and it was given dominant headline space for about a week across our mainstream media outlets. On Friday evening, news broke that former ACT Party president Tim Jago was the high-profile political figure who wasn't an MP, who had been found guilty of historic sexual abuse instances, who had managed to secure name suppression for over 2 years. Originally because it was successfully argued in court that his naming would adversely impact the ACT Party in the 2023 election. And news coverage on this, well, it's been severely limited, especially when you compare it to what happened to Golriz. By the Saturday, only one major news outlet had it as a story on their front page, and TVNZ led with a pre-recorded interview with one of the victims who bravely came forward to speak of his experiences back in September 2024 that they couldn't air until that name suppression was lifted. Other than the late night Friday release of the news, which in itself is timed to minimize the coverage it would get, the dominant, if limited news narrative since the revelation has been that the ACT Party couldn't have possibly known what was happening, which was sourced from a single press release from the party itself. The media approached Golriz's lawyers, her flatmates, friends, the police to inform their multitude of stories, and each said there was nothing to report. The media didn't seem to go and hound David Seymour or other ACT Party MPs or their party hierarchy over the weekend to get more context for their news stories on Jago, despite multiple comments appearing on social media over the weekend from people involved in past campaigns with ACT who claimed Jago's actions were well known within the organisation, or that the initial complaint was actually registered in the late 1990s with the police, well before criminal proceedings or even, that general history of creepiness that seems to abound with the party. Now, whether it's conscious or unconscious, media here in Aotearoa has always had a bias against MPs who come from diverse backgrounds, and issues that impact people from diverse backgrounds often get the same treatment. And we can see this through the language that the media uses, the framing that they set up with, and the voices that they choose to platform. There's a reason why proudly Māori MPs are called radical when they make headlines that question the status quo, but it doesn't tend to happen for less melanated MPs. And here we have lobby groups and individuals that feed into that negative stereotype with huge amounts of resources and reach on social media platforms. Part of what we saw with Golriz is actually fed by that, and by the commercial decisions that would see that type of content being created because it has a wider reach and higher engagement levels than different sorts of content. Part of the difference here, though, is also the timing. The news of Jago hit at 5 p.m. on Friday, when newsrooms are on skeleton crews and most weekend content's already been put to bed in advance. It's a common tactic called the Friday night dump. It's actually been used for decades by governments who want to release information that they kind of hope gets buried. As an audience, we should be asking ourselves questions about all media we consume, like where was the information sourced from, who released it, and to what purpose? Why do the media think it's important to run days of stories on an unsubstantiated rumour about a former MP, but not do the same to a former political party president? Does the role that they have overshadow the reasons that they made the news? And who gets to decide that? It's definitely not always me. Whether it's Wellingtonians' views on cycle lanes, how a young mum did what she could to look after her kids before she became an MP, the dangers of climate change, the need to invade Iraq for weapons of mass destruction, or if you should be more angry at a former MP for something she didn't do, or a former party president for something he did, the media is still a powerful tool for shaping the agenda of public discourse. And we all need to be really, very aware of that. Hey, thanks for checking out today's video. Make sure you like, share, subscribe so you get more updates as we go along. We deal with these guys for the rest of the year.